Hello, this is Paul CHEK. Welcome to my video blog. Today I thought I would go over an exercise I may have gone over before, but I just felt inspired to share it with you because it's such a great exercise. It's the Box Lunge. You know, the Box Lunge is a great exercise. One, it's good for athletics because there's a lot of sports where we have to get down low, such as wrestling and hockey and a variety of sports where we need to get down low. We need strength coming off the bottom of a movement. I do a lot of stone lifting, so I get into all sorts of weird and crazy positions where I'm having to pick heavy things up off the ground, so I need a lot of strength, and I do box deadlifts for the same reasons, but they do put more stress on the body, and so you need to be much more conscious of form. Now, for those of you that want well-developed gluteus maximus muscles, a box lunge is really good because when you do the box lunge, your foot, we don't want to go higher than 4 inches, by the way, because when you get into the bottom position of the lunge, which would be right here, for beginners, I don't recommend letting your shin go past vertical because it puts more load through the patella tendon, and if your tissues aren't preconditioned, it can lead to problems. I've seen plenty of athletes traumatize the patella tendon or the insertion to the tibia or in the quadriceps expansion, all sorts of problems around the knee from pushing too hard and too deep. But once you get down in this position, you've got so much hip flexion that the brain really has to activate, or the nervous system really has to activate the gluteus maximus to get you out of that position. And the gluteus maximus is not a muscle that is easy to turn on. It's predominantly fast twitch muscle fiber, which has quite a high threshold of activation. Your 2B fibers have the highest threshold, your 2A fibers, fast oxidative, have the next highest, and your slow twitch fibers, type 1, are very easily turned on, and they're very efficient, and they have an aerobic metabolism. So your gluteus maximus muscle is really designed for explosive movement, heavy movements, acceleration, deceleration, things like landing from a jump. And as people age, they stop doing those types of movements. They slow down too much. They stop stressing their bodies. And what happens is that they start losing their gluteus maximus muscles quickly and their core muscles. And there's a lot of fast twitch muscle in the core for explosive movement and catching your balance. So typically, as people become more sedentary, the first groups of muscles you see start to atrophy or get weaker and shrink are the abdominal wall and the gluteus maximus. Now, I'm just a little bit off of a year away from 60. I'll be 59, I think, next month? Hard to believe. So I'll be 60 in a year. So I've had to really focus on taking care of my body so I don't just turn into a 60-year-old. And the box lunge is very, very good for that. So what I'll do now is I'll demonstrate with the bar, and a reminder, don't go higher than 4 inches on the box. I've worked for professional sports teams that had lots of groin injuries, and I tracked it right back to doing box lunges off of boxes too high as a foot, which really is dangerous and can lead to injuries that can take a long time to recover from unless you have very skilled help, and even then groin injuries can be really tough to get over. So you're going to just get the bar on your back. I personally like a low bar position because it's less stressful on the neck. You want to take a big enough step that when your foot's on the box and you drop down, your shin's vertical. If I short step the lunge, then when I get down into the bottom, it pushes my shin forward, which puts more load through the extensor mechanism of the knee and loads the patella more heavily. So you just take a big enough step that when you're in the lunge and your back knee's touching the ground, your shin should be vertical. I could even go back a little bit more. And you want to keep your chest up. You don't want to bend forward and round your back. Now, you can do it in the beginning as a split squat, which means you don't step out of the lunge. You drop down till your knee just touches the floor and comes back, and be very careful not to bang your kneecap on the floor or you can get hurt. not something you'll want. And you just go down, stop, come back up. So you do a set on each side like that, and that's called a split squat. Okay, or you can step in, come into the lunge, drop in, and then push back out, and that's a standard lunge. I like the split squat when I'm trying to build muscle or go more toward bodybuilding, because it allows you to leave the muscles under tension longer, because when you come in and spring out, you're using a lot of kinetic energy stored in the fascia of the muscles and in the tendons of the muscles, so it's like stretching a rubber band. It gives you energy back. But if you want to build muscle, you're better to take that kinetic energy out, go down, dead stop, pause, come back up, down, dead stop, pause. And we want to keep that bar nice and upright. If you drop a plumb line from the end of the bar, it should be able to halfway between the front foot and the back foot. Whereas if I bend forward, it gets closer and closer to the front foot, and it starts training the brain to use the back muscles more than it is using the hip extensors to perform the exercise, which produces a faulty movement pattern. Okay? So from there, you can progressively build up in weight. I highly recommend you go into this just with body weight if you're not familiar with the exercise and how you're going to respond. Then go from body weight to an empty bar. For women or children, I have special bars that are lighter. I've got a 35-pound and a 25-pound aluminum bar. You can use body bars. You can use kettlebells to do the same concept, except it's going to be slightly different in the way the motor system works because the weight's going to be lower, but that's okay. It still gives you a great workout. And build up from there. But I would encourage you not to go too fast with this exercise, because when you remember, when you're stepping forward and your foot's raised, you're stretching your hip flexors on the trailing leg quite significantly, and if your hip flexors are too tight, it'll pull you forward. That's one of the reasons you see people like this, and that, if the bar is up too high, can put a lot of stress on your neck. So you need to have enough flexibility in your hip flexors to keep that balanced position and come back up and out. The point I'm making is not only is that putting a tremendous stretch through the gluteus maximus, and the stretch excites the muscle because it stretches the spindle cells in the muscle, which causes what's called a gamma gain, which means that the spindle cell communicates the stretch through the gamma nervous system to the alpha motor neurons, which then excites the muscle. And that's what makes it have a higher work potential, but it also induces more microtrauma and can lead to a lot of delayed onset soreness. So it's a wise idea to start this exercise just with body weight. Build yourself up to 3 sets of like 8 to 12 or even 16. And once you can do that without getting sore, then go to an empty bar and then build up from there. Now what it looks like, I'll put a little bit of weight on there just so you can kind of get a feel for it with, 135 pounds. I don't train nearly like I used to, but I used to do these things with 255 for reps when I was in my 40s, but I used to spend a lot more time training, and I'm not so oriented toward that anymore. I'm more oriented toward just feeling good and having good baseline health and being strong enough to chase my kids around, and that's enough motivation to stay fit, but not make it take up so much of my day that I don't have time to explore other aspects of life. So you'll get under the bar. You can position the box that way, but then it's hard to get under the bar because you're 4 inches lower, and it can make it easier to trip coming on and off the box. So I like a good solid step box. You also don't want to use a worn out step box because they're mushy. Sometimes they get cracked, and so it feels like you're stepping onto something that moves. which I don't recommend for this type of exercise. It's tricky enough as it is. So I get the bar, load it up, step back, and then get approximately the right distance from the box, step in, drop down, come up. That would be a split squat. And then if I want to do a dynamic lunge, I can do the same thing. And step out. There you go. So that's your box lunge. Now I should review a little on the core. If you're using a weight that's heavy enough that you naturally want to stop breathing to stabilize, inhale through your belly with the weight on your back. Activate your core, so you've got your breath in, full belly, full breath. Pull your core in, step in, drop down, and as you come out, keep your lips tight. The blowing through the pursed lips keeps core tension. You don't want to let your air out prior to coming through the sticking point of the toughest part of the lift, where you lose all the thoracic pressure. When your core activates, it pushes the organs up. If your lungs have no air, then there's nothing to stabilize them. But if you inhale first, draw the core in, now you have pneumatic or air pressure pushing against the hydraulic pressure of the organs, which increases core stiffness and stability, so your arms and legs have a more solid working foundation, which is much safer. So there's your last tip. Enjoy your box lunges and your new perky butt. I'm sure somebody near you will comment within about 4 weeks that things are changing, and they might say, boy, you're looking younger, but what they're really saying is, you've got a much nicer ass. What have you been doing? So I think we're all attracted to a healthy butt because it means strength and stability, which in nature meant a lot. If you want to learn more about this, you can study my gym instructor series, which goes through all the standard lifts that are important to know in the gym. Or you can get into my integrated movement science training, which is the CHEK Practitioner training program. And if you want to know more about the core, look at my scientific core conditioning program. For the back, the sister program, scientific back training. And that gives you a hell of a lot to work with to really enhance your overall level of health, vitality, and your ability to coach or train people more scientifically and more effectively. So thanks for joining me today. I'm Paul CHEK. I'll see you next time.